Hey guys, we're going to do a chapter 10 section 1 video here, and we're going to talk about how can you determine the number of possible results. So one thing we do in mathematics a lot is we analyze situations and we look at what could possibly happen, what are all the options, and this is what we call probability. So we're going to get into some vocabulary today for this video. We're going to talk about what an experiment is. You know the word experiment because you've been in science classes and you've run experiments probably before. But in math, when we talk about an experiment, we're just talking about an investigation or a procedure. When we're looking into something or we're trying something. A procedure is when you're trying some steps to see what happens. And an investigation is where you're getting interested in figuring out what's going on. Now, outcomes are the possible results of your experiment. So outcomes are things that can happen when you do your experiment. So we're going to use that word a lot during chapter 10. And favorable outcomes mean specific outcomes are usually things that you want or you're looking for. So if they're favorable outcomes, they're very specific, meaning you're thinking of an exact thing that you want to have happen. So I just wanted to get you to write some vocabulary down in your notebook because it's important to kind of hear these words and know what they mean mathematically. And then we're going to look at some basic examples today. So here is our example. We're going to run a really easy experiment. We are going to flip a coin. Flipping a coin's easy because really when you think about flipping a coin, there's really only two options. When that coin flips, you either get heads or you get tails. So the possible outcomes that you can get are heads or tails. Assuming you're using a standard coin, none of those trick coins where it's a head on both sides. Have you seen those before where people do those? They buy special coins and it has heads and heads. Yeah, that's not cool. So possible outcomes are what could happen. Now, let's look at another example. Let's say our experiment was rolling a dice. I know these aren't super exciting science experiments, but they're just kind of some basic experiments. If you roll a dice, what is the possible things that can happen? Well, you're either going to roll a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 because a normal standard dice has 6 sides. So possible outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. That is your possible outcomes. Okay, so what are the favorable outcomes for rolling an even number? So that means what are the chances of getting an even number? What are the options? Well, what are even numbers? 2, 4, and 6. So the favorable outcomes would be 2, 4, and 6. That would be if you were looking for even numbers. What are the favorable outcomes of rolling a number greater than 4? Let's say you're playing a game and if you get a number greater than 4, you win. Well, what numbers would you need? Well, 5 or 6. Those are numbers greater than 4. Those would be your favorable outcomes. Okay, let's look at another example here. Here's our next experiment. We're going to spin this spinner. We're going to flick the spinner and see where it lands. So the experiment is spin a spinner. The possible outcomes, well, what are all the options? Well, it looks like we've got colors. There's red, there's purple, there's blue, and there's green. So I see 6 different sections and 6 possible outcomes if you count up all the areas it could land into. 6 sections and 6 outcomes. Now let's say we want to know what the possible red options are. How many red sections are there? Well, there's 3 red sections, so there are 3 possibilities of getting a red. What are the favorable outcomes of spinning a non-purple? Let's say if you landed on purple, you lost your game. So what are the favorable outcomes for getting a non-purple? Well, there's only 1 purple section. There's still 5 other non-purple sections. So the favorable outcomes would be the 5 non-purple sections. That would help you win your game. Okay, you try. You select a marble at random out of a bag, and this is what's inside your bag of marbles. Here they are. I'm going to ask you to answer 2 questions and then see if you got it correct. How many possible outcomes are there, and what are the favorable outcomes of choosing a non-yellow? Hit the pause button on your device, and right now, answer both those questions. Go. Okay, let's check your answer and see what you think. So how many possible outcomes are there? Well, how many marbles are there? There are 8 marbles in this picture, so there are 8 possible outcomes. And what are the favorable outcomes of choosing a non-yellow? Well, I see 3 yellows, so that must mean there are 5 that are non-yellows. So 5 possibilities. You could pull out a blue, a green, there's another blue, you could get a red or a purple. Those are all non-yellow marbles. Alright guys, so that's just your introductory video getting us started on some probability. I hope you know what an experiment is and an outcome and a favorable outcome. Thanks for watching. Bye.